Police taser. Her autistic son. Black woman's response goes viral nationwide. The scream that tore through the afternoon air didn't sound like any child's cry. It was sharp, distorted, filled with a panic that made hearts stop. Then came the sound of electricity snapping. "Micah!" Dr. Alana Reeves dropped the grocery bag she was carrying, fruit scattering across the sidewalk. Her eyes locked onto the scene unfolding across the street. Her 10-year-old son lay on the ground, convulsing. A police officer, white, early 40s, stood above him with a taser in hand, eyes wild and out of control. "He wouldn't stop flailing," the officer barked, as if that justified the violence. "He was acting aggressive." "He's autistic, you son of a bitch," Alana roared as she ran across the street, her heels cracking against the concrete. Another officer tried to stop her. She pushed past him without hesitation, dropping to her knees beside Micah. His small frame twitched involuntarily, his hands rigid, eyes wide with confusion and pain. "Baby, breathe," she whispered. "I'm here. Mama's here. Just breathe." "Ma'am, step away," the officer ordered. "He resisted." Alana didn't even look up. Her voice, though low, cut sharper than glass. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career." Someone had filmed it. A bystander. The camera phone caught the whole thing. The trigger, the fall, the screams, the face of the officer. And Alana, kneeling like a statue, cradling her boy as blue lights flickered behind her. Within the hour, the footage would be online, and the country would be watching. 3 hours earlier, everything was normal. Alana had just picked Micah up from his after-school therapy session at the North Charlotte Neurodevelopment Center. He was excited because his therapist had let him use the communication board to request his favorite snack. Cinnamon rolls, as they walked hand in hand, Alana letting him swing her arm like a pendulum. "Mom," Micah said, voice flat but proud, "I did 3 full minutes without stimming." She smiled. "That's amazing, baby." Their neighborhood was quiet, upper middle class, integrated but still tinged with subtle divides. It was the kind of place where people smiled at each other in HOA meetings, but clutched their purses a little tighter when a black teen walked by with a hoodie. Alana had lived here for 2 years, a fresh start, a break from her old life. No one here knew her background, and that was the point. But when they passed the new construction site at the end of the block, things changed fast. Micah had a sensory trigger to loud, sudden noises. One of the workers accidentally slammed a metal sheet, and the sound sent Micah spinning into an overload. He dropped to the ground, covering his ears, rocking. His vocalizations turned into yells, his version of a coping mechanism. That's when the call was made. A suspicious child screaming and flailing. The dispatcher's voice said it calmly over the radio. 2 officers pulled up minutes later. By the time Alana turned around to see what was happening, one of them had already drawn his taser. She screamed, told them he was autistic. They didn't listen. Back at the precinct, the officer who deployed the taser, Deputy Travis Boyd, sat in the back room with his partner, Officer Shelley Knox. "You know who she is?" Knox asked, voice low. "That woman? Something's off. She didn't even flinch, didn't cry. Just said that line. She's just some lawyer-looking woman, probably gonna sue. Who cares?" Knox leaned back, crossing her arms. "Nah, that wasn't fear. That was strategy." Boyd shrugged. "So she's pissed. She should be. But we'll bury it." Micah looked erratic. "I'll write it up that way. Threat to others." "Kid weighs 70 pounds, Travis." "Then make it 80. At the hospital, Alana sat beside her son's bed. Micah was stable now, sedated slightly, but otherwise unharmed. Physically. She looked at him, his tiny hand wrapped in wires and adhesive pads, and something inside her shifted. She had kept quiet long enough. She pulled out a small phone from the inner lining of her coat. Not her regular one. This one was from her past life. She dialed. "Reeves," a voice answered. I thought you disappeared. I need a copy of the Boyd disciplinary records, internal affairs logins, body cam footage, and a quiet background trace on Officer Shelley Knox. Whoa, you're in Charlotte? Not for long. Dare I ask what happened? My son got tasered for being autistic. The line went quiet, then, I'll send what I can within the hour. You going public? Not yet. Alana ended the call and walked to the window. Outside the hospital, she could already see people gathering. Someone had posted the footage on Twitter. The hashtags were forming. Justice for Micah and our hands off our kids. She knew how this worked. The internet would rage for 2 days. The department would lie, deny, and then maybe offer a settlement. It would all fade until it happened again, unless she did something different. In her living room that night, Alana laid out documents, a trail of reports, a map of misconduct. She'd been keeping track ever since her quiet exit from the DOJ, not because she wanted revenge, but because she knew one day she might need proof. She turned on her laptop, began writing a post. It started like this. My name is Dr. Alana Reeves. I'm a neuropsychologist, a former federal investigator, and the mother of a 10-year-old autistic boy named Micah. Today, a police officer tasered my son. This is not just my story. It's yours, too. She paused. Her hand hovered over the post button. Then she clicked. By sunrise, the entire country would know, and this time she wasn't just a mother. She was the reckoning. The knock came just past midnight. Alana froze. She had just finished her 3rd round of interviews with national media, none of which she did in person. Her post had gone viral faster than she expected. Within hours, Micah's name had trended nationwide. But it wasn't the social media support she was relying on. It was what came next. The knock was firm, intentional, not the kind of knock you expect from a neighbor. She walked to the door slowly, hand brushing the edge of her concealed safe box just inside the entryway. The past life she had buried for years stirred again, muscle memory, instincts she tried to suppress. She opened the door. Standing there were 2 men in dark suits. Dr. Reeves? The taller one asked, flashing a badge. Agent Morales. Internal Affairs Division. This is Agent Heath. Mind if we come in? She stepped aside without a word. Once inside, she closed the door, turned, and said flatly, Don't insult my intelligence. IAD doesn't knock unless they're hiding something. Heath gave a half smile. Didn't expect anything less from you. We saw the footage. And we saw what you posted. Alana didn't blink. I wasn't asking for your blessing. Morales shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Dr. Reeves, there's pressure from the top. What happened to your son was horrifying. No argument there, but you of all people know the optics are delicate. Is that what we call electrocuting a child now? Optics? Heath stepped in. We're not here to silence you. We're here to warn you. Someone's digging, not just about Boyd, about you. Let them dig. No, Morales said, his voice low. They're not digging to prosecute Boyd. They're trying to discredit you. Alana exhaled slowly. There it was. She had expected blowback, but not this fast. Let me guess, she said. Anonymous tip. Claims I falsified reports, mishandled cases, maybe even say I was dismissed from the DOJ under ethical review. Heath looked at her in surprise. She smirked. I wrote half those reviews. I know how the game is played. Morales stepped closer. This is bigger than your case now. City council's involved. The mayor's office wants to stay clear. And Boyd? He's already been put on administrative leave. But they're waiting, hoping this goes away. Then they're going to wait a long time, she said. Micah stirred from the couch in the corner. Alana's voice immediately softened. You okay, baby? He nodded slightly. I dreamed the lights weren't loud anymore. Her heart twisted. After the agents left, she sat beside Micah, brushing a hand over his curls. His eyes, big and full of wonder, held none of the fear she felt, and that scared her more than anything. He trusted the world, and it had betrayed him. The next morning, footage she hadn't seen surfaced online. A new angle, body cam footage. Officer Boyd could be heard saying, "I don't care what he's got. If he keeps screaming, he's getting lit up." Lit up. Two words that made the entire internet pause. Lit up began trending by noon. Students in Atlanta held a walkout. A group of black mothers gathered on courthouse steps in Memphis, holding signs that read, "Autism isn't a threat." And somewhere in South Carolina, a man named Dennis Bloom watched the whole thing from his penthouse office. Dennis used to work with Alana long ago, before she became a mother, before she disappeared. He picked up his phone. "Find her. Tell her I'm in." Back in Charlotte, a new twist unfolded. Someone leaked documents to a local news station, internal memos suggesting the police department had received prior complaints about Officer Boyd using excessive force, particularly toward children with disabilities. None of them had resulted in suspension. None of them had been disclosed publicly. And all of them had Alana's old initials marked on the investigation trail. She leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing. They had used her work, her name, to cover this up years ago. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about her son anymore. This was about a pattern. Later that day, she was approached by a woman outside the hospital, middle-aged, Latina, eyes swollen from crying. "You don't know me," she said, voice trembling. "But my daughter. She had a meltdown at school last year. The cops came. They threw her against a desk. She's 6. Nonverbal." Alana's breath caught. "They said it was protocol, that she lunged." "Did you report it?" "To who? I'm a cleaner. I barely speak English. They told me if I pushed it, they'd investigate my visa." Alana put her hand on the woman's shoulder. "What's your daughter's name?" "Valeria." Alana looked into her eyes. "She matters. And so do you." That night, Alana did something she hadn't done in years. She stepped in front of a camera. Not through Zoom, not through an alias. Just her. She stood on the steps of the Charlotte Police Department, surrounded by other mothers, some black, some white, some brown, each one holding a photo of their child. She held up a microphone. "My name is Alana Reeves. My son was tasered by a police officer who saw his stimming as a threat. But this story isn't just mine. It's Valeria's. It's Jamal's. It's every child who was punished for being different, and every mother who was told to stay quiet or lose everything. Well, I've already lost enough. And I won't be silent." The crowd erupted. The news anchors cut litti. Politicians tweeted. The story now wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. And behind it all stood a woman who once vowed never to reveal who she was again. But for her son and every voiceless child she would. She already had. Alana hadn't been in a courtroom in over 6 years. Not as a lawyer, not as an expert witness, not even as a visitor. But now she stood under the cold marble arches of Mecklenburg County Courthouse, her heels echoing against the polished floor like war drums. This time she wasn't fighting someone else's case. It was her son's name on the file, her name on the front page. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Reporters lined the back row. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but their presence pressed like heat against her spine. She spotted Officer Boyd sitting 2 rows ahead, his uniform traded for a navy suit and smirk. Beside her sat Dennis Bloom, former federal prosecutor, civil rights activist, and the last person she ever expected to see again. "You sure about this?" he asked under his breath. Alana's eyes stayed fixed on the judge entering the bench. "I'm not here for sure. I'm here for justice." The judge, Honorable Raymond Harper, was an old-school Southern moderate, respected but cautious. Alana had clashed with him once during a case about police surveillance. He remembered her, and she saw it in his eyes. The hearing wasn't about the assault, not yet. It was to determine whether criminal charges would move forward against Boyd or be settled privately. "Ms. Reeves," the judge said, peering over his glasses, "you understand the risks of pursuing this through the courts instead of private settlement?" Alana stood. Her voice was steady. "Yes, Your Honor. But a private check won't fix what was done to my son or the children before him." Boyd's attorney stood next. Crisp suit, Ivy League polish. Arrogance oozed from every syllable. "Your Honor, my client responded based on department training. The incident was unfortunate, but not criminal. Ms. Reeves' decision to bypass internal review procedures signals a personal vendetta." Alana cut in. "I'm sorry. Are you suggesting I should have trusted the same system that protected Boyd for 5 other cases?" Gasps stirred the courtroom. Judge Harper banged his gavel. "You'll have your time, Mrs. Reeves. Mr. Patterson, unless you can disprove those internal records, I'd caution you against misrepresenting facts." Patterson stiffened. "We'd like to motion for the suppression of certain documents, memos that were not obtained through legal channels." Alana looked at Dennis. That was the twist, the internal memos, the ones proving Boyd's pattern. Alana didn't hack into police files. She had written those documents years ago, before leaving the Department of Justice. But she had never kept copies. Someone had. Dennis leaned in. "You think it's the woman from the hospital, the one with the daughter?" "No," Alana murmured. She wouldn't even know where to start. Then it hit her. Back when she worked for the DOJ, she had flagged several use-of-force cases and copied them to a secure civil rights task force, many of whom were now scattered across the country. Someone must have seen the video of Micah, made the connection, and sent the files anonymously. The judge reviewed the folder in silence. Then finally, "Request for suppression is denied. These records are corroborated by department timestamps and public whistleblower statute." Boyd's smirk faded. Alana felt it. The shift. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had doubled. Protesters, parents, teachers, even a group of veterans holding up signs that read, "Protect all Americans, including our children." Micah sat in the car with a therapist, coloring quietly. When Alana emerged, a reporter called out, "Ms. Reeves, what happens next?" She didn't stop walking, but she answered, "Next, we put the whole system on trial." That night, someone left an envelope on her doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, grainy. It showed Boyd, in uniform, standing over a boy handcuffed on the ground. The child's face was obscured, but the date in the corner matched a case from 3 years ago. One that was marked as closed with no violation. There was also a sticky note. 3 words written in all caps. "He's done lying." No signature. Alana clutched the photo. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Not because the battle was over, but because she wasn't fighting alone. She called Dennis. "Get me a forensic specialist," she said. "I'm reopening the Carter case." There was a pause on the line. "That was sealed under the Juvenile Act. You sure you want to go that deep?" Alana's eyes were already on her laptop, typing fast. "I'm not digging up the past. I'm proving it never ended." Alana sat alone in her kitchen, eyes locked on the grainy photo laid flat on the counter. The boy in the picture, tiny, handcuffed, barely more than 7, wasn't Micah. But he could have been. Same height, same way his sneakers bent inward, like he hadn't grown into them yet. The timestamp in the corner didn't lie. March 12, 2020. 3 years before Micah was tasered. That meant Boyd had done this before. At least once. Probably more. She turned the photo over. Still nothing. No sender. No clue. Until she noticed something faint near the corner. Not a name. Not a date. A seal. It was the faded logo of the Charlotte Civil Rights Network, an old grassroots group she had once partnered with when she was still in D.C., fighting discrimination cases. She hadn't spoken to anyone from CCRN in years. She picked up her phone. Alana. The voice was hesitant. Male, mid-50s maybe. Carlos? A beat. You weren't supposed to call this number. We have protocol. Screw protocol, Alana said. You sent the photo? Silence. Then, yes. Why now? Carlos exhaled. Because you're the only one who can finish what we started. I flagged Boyd's name back in 20. Internal Affairs buried it. Said it was a training miscommunication. But the mom of that kid, she killed herself 6 months later. Nobody connected the dots. Alana's hand tightened around the phone. I need every file you have. There's more, Carlos said. A body cam recording that was deleted from the department archive. We recovered a low-res version. You'll want to see it. She met him in a church basement that night. It wasn't dramatic like in the movies. No trench coats, no USB handoffs in the rain. Just two tired people sitting under fluorescent lights, watching a shaky video on an old laptop. It showed Boyd grabbing a sobbing boy by the arm. The child screamed the word "stop" over and over. Boyd didn't. The clip ended with static and one final image, Boyd looking directly into the camera, then reaching up to shut it off. Alana sat in silence. I can't use this, she finally said. Not in court. The chain of custody's broken, and the video's already been expunged. Carlos nodded. I figured. But there's one other person you need to talk to, the therapist who tried to report Boyd that same year. They fired her from the school, blackballed her from every clinic in the city. Name? Leah Crawford. Alana scribbled it down. She's still in Charlotte? Carlos hesitated. No. Moved to Asheville. Works out of a community center now. Doesn't do interviews. You'll have to convince her. The next morning, Alana made the drive west, winding through the mountains with nothing but her thoughts and the quiet rustle of old court documents in the back seat. Micah had stayed home, his therapist suggesting a few days of rest. She had installed extra locks, hired a private security detail. She wasn't taking any chances anymore. Asheville was quieter, softer. The town carried a different weight than Charlotte, less urgency, more grief. Leah Crawford was in her mid-40s, wearing a long cardigan, eyes lined with exhaustion that seemed permanent. When Alana introduced herself, Leah stiffened. You're suing the department? She asked. I'm prosecuting the officer, Alana corrected. I tried that. They shut every door in my face, said I was hysterical, that I was too emotionally involved in the kids. They always say that, Alana replied. She reached into her bag and placed the photo on the table. Leah's face changed. I remember him, Isaiah, 8 years old, brilliant kid, could name every constellation. Boyd dragged him across the floor for not answering a question fast enough. His mom begged the principal to act. Instead, they called it a behavior issue, said she was overreacting. She took her life, Alana said quietly. Leah nodded. I have her journal, she said suddenly. She gave it to me. Said if anything happened, I should make sure someone told the truth. She disappeared into a back room and returned with a small, leather-bound book. Pages worn, some tear-stained. Alana opened it and read, They say he doesn't belong here, that my son is dangerous. But I've seen danger, and it doesn't look like a child with a coloring book. Alana closed the journal. It wasn't just about Micah anymore. It never had been. Back in Charlotte, Officer Boyd was already on damage control. He released a statement calling the video selectively edited, claiming he had received death threats and that political figures were using his reputation for personal agendas. On the same day, the Charlotte PD issued a vague memo about reviewing use of a force policy regarding non-compliant juveniles. Alana wasn't impressed. She stood in front of her laptop, recording a message that would change everything. My name is Alana Reeves. I'm a civil rights attorney. A mother, and the woman whose autistic son was tasered in broad daylight. What happened to Micah wasn't an accident. It was part of a pattern, a culture. And we're done being silent. She ended the recording. 20 minutes later, the video had 200,000 views, and climbing. She didn't hit refresh. She grabbed her coat, because it was time to make her next move, this time not in court, but at the school board meeting, where everything had started. The fluorescent lights of the school board auditorium buzzed above Alana's head as she adjusted the collar of her blazer. The room was packed, mostly parents and teachers, their faces tight with quiet tension. Local reporters stood near the back, notepads ready, cameras discreetly rolling. A single chair sat at the center of the floor below the panel of board members, all of them stone-faced behind nameplates. Alana took her seat and placed Micah's school photo on the small table in front of her. The board president, an older white man with salt and pepper hair and the kind of voice built for dismissing outrage, tapped the mic. "You have 5 minutes, Ms. Reeves." She nodded once, then stood. "My name is Alana Reeves. My son Micah is 7 years old. He's autistic. And last Thursday, he was tasered by an officer your school resource program employs. I want to tell you exactly what that moment has done to our family." Some in the room shifted. Others stared at her, waiting. The video of Micah screaming had already gone viral. But this was personal. He doesn't sleep anymore. He flinches at sudden sounds. He won't step foot in a school building. And every night before bed, he asks if the police are going to come back and hurt him again. One of the board members, a woman with dark-rimmed glasses, looked down. Alana didn't stop. "This isn't an isolated incident. We've collected evidence, video, sworn statements, even an internal memo suggesting Officer Boyd's record was flagged 3 years ago for excessive force involving a child." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The board president leaned forward. "Ms. Reeves, this is a public comment forum. Accusations of this nature—" "I'm not making accusations," Alana interrupted. "I'm presenting facts." She reached into her bag and held up the journal of Isaiah's mother. This is the written account of a mother whose child was also assaulted by Boyd. She reported it. She was ignored. She took her life. There was a sharp gasp from the audience. A teacher stood up. "I remember that boy. We all did. He used to sit by the windows and draw galaxies." Another voice followed, louder. "My daughter has epilepsy. That same officer yanked her arm so hard last year she had a seizure in the hallway. We were told it was her fault." Then a parent near the back shouted, "Why is this man still working here?" Chaos broke loose. The board scrambled to regain control. "Order, please," the president barked, gaveling the table. But the room was no longer theirs. A chant started, one person, then two. "Protect our kids," then louder. "Protect our kids." By the time security arrived, it was a full protest. Someone shoved a mic toward Alana. Cameras swiveled. "Is this going to court?" "Yes," she said firmly. "But not just this. I'm filing a civil suit against the school board for negligence. You were warned. You had records. And you did nothing." She turned back to the board. "You failed my son. You failed every child who walked these halls, believing they were safe." Outside the auditorium, a line of TV vans stretched down the street. Reporters called her name. Alana didn't stop. She had one place left to go. The mayor's office. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about change. Micah waited for her at home, curled on the couch beneath a weighted blanket. His tablet played soft music, and his eyes lit up when she walked in. "You were on TV," he whispered. "I know," she said, sitting beside him. "Did I look brave?" He nodded. "Like a superhero." That night, she received an anonymous text with a link. It was a new video, one even Carlos hadn't mentioned. It showed Boyd in a meeting, laughing with 2 other officers. One of them said, These parents act like their kids are special just because they don't talk right. Tase them once, they all shut up. Alana froze. The timestamp was last month. She clicked, this wasn't just incompetence, it was a culture, and it was going to burn. The morning after the school board meeting, Alana woke up to chaos. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Voicemails, texts, misdialed calls. One headline from a national news site flashed on the lock screen. Mother of autistic boy tasered at school takes on district and wins hearts nationwide. She sat up slowly, still in yesterday's clothes. Her inbox was overflowing. Lawyers, activists, even a morning show host's assistant requesting an interview. But one email caught her eye. Subject, urgent. Whistleblower evidence. The message came from a burner account. No name, just a Dropbox link and the words, "This is bigger than your son. Good luck." She hesitated for only a second before clicking the link. Inside the folder were dozens of video files, body cam footage, school hallway security tapes, even cell phone recordings, each labeled with a date and time. Some went back years. Alana's stomach dropped as she clicked on one marked Jan 12 Boyd interrogation. In the video, Officer Boyd was standing over a teenage black boy in a nurse's office yelling, "You think acting slow gets you out of this? You touch her again, and I'll make sure you can't touch anything ever again." The boy looked terrified, stammering, I didn't mean to. I just wanted my hoodie." Then came the sound, the unmistakable crackle of a taser being readied. Alana covered her mouth. She couldn't watch anymore. She called Carlos. "You need to come over now," she said. "Bring your laptop." He arrived within 20 minutes, sweat on his brow despite the cool weather. "You weren't kidding," he muttered, scrolling through the fees. "This is a gold mine." "No," Alana said quietly. "It's a graveyard." Together they began compiling evidence. Carlos worked quickly, muttering under his breath. "I can trace the metadata. Whoever sent this person had admin access, probably IT or internal audit. They knew exactly what to pull." Alana leaned back, exhausted. "Then they're risking everything to get this out." By noon, Carlos had cut together a 3-minute compilation. It wasn't just Boyd, it was a pattern. Multiple officers intimidating children, special needs students being physically restrained. One clip showed a girl with Down syndrome being dragged across the cafeteria floor as students screamed. Alana's hands were shaking. "We need to release this," she said. Carlos looked at her. "If we do, this doesn't stop with a lawsuit. This becomes a war." "Then so be it," she said. They uploaded the video anonymously. Within an hour, it had over 500,000 views. By the next morning, it was everywhere. National news, cable networks. Even the Department of Education issued a statement promising immediate review of school policing practices. But then came the retaliation. That night, as Alana tucked Micah into bed, she noticed something strange. A black SUV parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine running. It didn't move for hours. Carlos stayed on the phone with her the entire night. "Could just be intimidation," he said. "They're trying to rattle you." "It's working," she admitted, "but it won't stop me." 2 days later, her car's brake lines were cut. She found out when she backed out of her driveway and the pedals slammed to the floor. Luckily, she was going slow enough to stop against a curb. That same afternoon, she received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a printed message. "Drop the case, or next time it won't be the brakes." Alana took it to the police, but the officer at the desk barely looked at it. "We'll make a note of it," he said, filing it away without even asking for her name. She walked out in silence. They were circling her now, watching, waiting, but she wasn't afraid anymore. Later that night, she sat with Micah, who was watching a cartoon with headphones on. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, removing one earbud. She smiled softly. "Yeah, baby. I'm just thinking. About the bad guys?" Alana paused. "Yes, but not just them." He tilted his head. "About the ones who think they can scare us into silence." Micah Kim frowned. "But we're not scared." She smiled again, this time with steel behind it. "No, baby, we're not." Her phone buzzed. "Carlos." "Alana, you need to hear this. We just got word. The State Attorney General's office is opening an investigation, and they're naming names. Not just Boyd, not just the district, but top-level police brass. Someone's talking." Alana closed her eyes. Finally, the cracks were turning into fault lines, and soon everything built on the backs of children like Micah would come crashing down. The hearing room was colder than Alana expected, though maybe that was just the adrenaline freezing in her veins. Her fingers tapped nervously on the edge of the mahogany table as the hum of side conversations buzzed through the room. Press crowded along the walls, cameras mounted high like watchful vultures. The Committee of State Investigators sat elevated, dressed in serious tones and sharper expressions. Alana's heart pounded in her chest. This wasn't just about Micah anymore. It hadn't been for a while. But now, as she sat at the center of it all, she knew the weight she carried wasn't hers alone. It was every mother who'd been dismissed, every child who'd been silenced, every officer who thought a badge made them untouchable. Her attorney leaned over. "You ready?" "No," she whispered, "but I'm doing it anyway." They called her name. "Mrs. Alana Brooks, please step forward." She stood, adjusting the soft navy blazer she'd borrowed from her sister. Simple, professional, but sharp. Micah's drawing was folded in her pocket. Just knowing it was there gave her strength. Alana approached the microphone. "For the record," one of the committee members began, "please state your full name." "Alana Michelle Brooks. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." The room hushed. Alana took a breath. Not too deep. Just enough. "My name is Alana Brooks. I'm a mother, a former teacher, and a lifelong resident of Westfield County. On April 19th, my 10-year-old son Micah, who is on the autism spectrum, was tasered by Officer Ronald Boyd at Brookside Elementary School. The murmur that followed was sharp, like a whip crack. Alana continued, her voice firm. "Micah had a meltdown. Not a threat, not an act of violence. A meltdown, triggered by fluorescent lights and an unexpected fire drill. He sat under a desk with his hands over his ears." Her voice quivered, but she caught it before it broke. "Officer Boyd dragged him out, screamed in his face. When Micah didn't respond fast enough, he was tased, in the hallway, in front of other children." The committee chair interjected. "And the school staff?" They didn't intervene. In fact, they allowed it. One staff member held the door open. The principal said protocol was followed. A collective intake of breath swept the room. "But that's not the worst part," Alana added, locking eyes with the committee. What followed was a campaign of silence. The body cam footage disappeared from public record. The district released a statement saying Micah had posed a threat, and Officer Boyd was placed on paid leave. That was it. She paused. "Until I release the tapes." There it was. The shift. Gasps. Whispers. Cameras clicking. The committee leaned forward. "I was anonymously sent files that showed not just what happened to my son, but a pattern. At least 11 other children, many with disabilities, were physically intimidated, restrained, or threatened by district officers over the past 3 years." She could feel the emotion rising in her throat now. Some of those kids still wake up screaming. Some haven't returned to school. Some parents didn't even know until now. The committee chair nodded solemnly. "We've seen the tapes. We are aware of the depth of misconduct." Alana raised her voice just slightly. "Then why did it take a mother going viral for someone to care?" Dead silence. A moment later, a new voice echoed from the back of the room. "I can answer that." Heads turned. A man in a worn gray suit stepped forward, short-cropped hair, glasses, and a badge clipped to his belt. FBI. "I'm Special Agent Carter James with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. We've been investigating misconduct in the Westfield County School Police Department for nearly a year." Alana blinked. "What?" Carter continued, now addressing the committee. "We initiated a probe after a series of complaints were buried, but we lacked evidence, until Mrs. Brooks released the footage." He looked at her directly. "Your actions helped break open a federal case." Alana sat down, stunned. The committee chair cleared his throat. "Agent James, you're telling us this was already under federal review?" "Yes, sir. And as of this morning, we filed indictments against Officer Ronald Boyd, former Chief Danielle Haynes, and 2 administrators from Brookside Elementary for obstruction of justice and civil rights violations." The room exploded. Gasps, shouts. A camera dropped. Somewhere a woman sobbed, and Alana just sat there, still, silent. But inside, something shattered. The wall, the one she'd been banging on for weeks. Years, maybe. It finally cracked. After the hearing, Alana stepped outside. The sunlight hit her face like a warm slap. Harsh, but real. The crowd parted around her. Journalists surged forward. "Mrs. Brooks, do you have a statement? Are you surprised by the indictments? Will you be seeking damages?" She held up a hand. "My son was not a case. He was a child, and I will not let anyone forget that." Then, from the crowd, a familiar face emerged. The janitor from Brookside, Mr. Calvin. He approached, holding a small folder. "I saw something the day it happened," he said. "Didn't think anyone would believe me. But now..." He handed her the folder. Inside, a printed email, dated 3 weeks before the incident. It was from the principal, a directive. "Effective immediately, all non-compliant students are to be referred directly to Officer Boyd, no exceptions. He has been given discretion to act as necessary." There it was, proof that it hadn't been a rogue decision. It had been a policy, a system, a betrayal. Alana stood quietly, then looked at the cameras again. This isn't over. Not until every name on every policy is exposed, and every child is safe. That night, as the headlines flooded national news, a Twitter hashtag began to trend. Justice for Micah. But more powerful than that were the DMs and emails, hundreds of them, from parents, teachers, even officers. One read, "I used to think it was just bad kids, but now I see it was bad systems. Thank you for opening my eyes." And then at 2:14 a.m. one final message came through from an anonymous number. "I was one of them. I helped cover it up. But I want to testify. I want to make it right." Alana sat up in bed, heart racing. Micah stirred beside her. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "They're listening now, baby." Then she turned back to her screen, ready to write back, ready to finish what she started. The courtroom had never been this packed. Reporters lined every available wall. Cameramen jostled for position. Whispers passed like wildfire among the crowd. Everyone had come for one reason: to witness the day Kendra Holt would finally face off against the men who nearly destroyed her son's life. Malik sat beside her, his arm in a brace, but his chin held high. His wounds were healing, his eyes were clear, and for the first time in months he looked like the boy she remembered, before the attack, before the lies, before the weight of a broken system crushed him. Judge Emerson leaned forward. The court calls Detective Rourke and Officer Malloy to the stand. The room held its breath. Kendra's attorney, a relentless firebrand named Alana Green, rose. She paced slowly before the jury box. "Detective Rourke, on the night of April 9th, did you or did you not claim that Malik Holt lunged at you with a weapon?" Rourke shifted. Yes. That's what I wrote in the report. And where is that weapon today? Evidence lost in processing. Alana's voice turned icy. Lost or fabricated? The courtroom murmured. Objection, the defense lawyer barked. Sustained, Judge Emerson replied. But the damage was done. The jury had heard it. Kendra watched as the cracks in their facade widened. Surveillance footage had already been entered into evidence. There was no weapon. There was only her son, thrown to the ground, kicked, arrested without cause. But the real twist came when Alana called her final witness. I'd like to call Captain Naomi Briggs to the stand. Whispers again. Captain Briggs, a decorated officer with over 20 years of service, walked in full uniform to the stand. Her testimony was brief and explosive. I was the supervising officer on duty the night Malik Holt was detained. I reviewed the body cam footage and the station logs. The arrest was unlawful. The force was excessive. And when I raised concerns, I was silenced. Internal memos were deleted. The incident report was rewritten. I was reassigned. Judge Emerson's jaw clenched. Kendra blinked back tears. A twist she hadn't expected. An insider who had her back. The jury deliberated for only 90 minutes. When they returned, the verdicts were swift and clear. Guilty on all counts. False reporting. Excessive force. Obstruction of justice. Gasps. A few cheers. And Malik, her boy, quietly wept as the courtroom burst into applause. Outside, as the media swarmed, Kendra stood tall before the microphones. This isn't just about my son. It's about every black mother who's ever feared the knock at the door, every family whose child was labeled a threat instead of a life worth protecting. We fought back, and we won. Reporters fired questions. What's next, Ms. Holt? She looked to Malik, then to the crowd. We start again, but we start better. We hold the system accountable. We demand transparency, and most of all, we make sure this, she pointed to the courthouse behind her, never happens again without a fight. Just then, a teenage girl approached. Ms. Holt, I watched your story on YouTube. My brother's going through something like this in Memphis. Your strength gave us hope. Kendra smiled, placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we're already winning. As the crowd dispersed, Malik turned to her. Mom, you didn't just save me. You changed everything. She laughed through her tears. You're damn right I did. If this story moved you, if you believe in justice, in truth, in the power of one voice to change everything, don't scroll past. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story, because out there, someone else needs to hear it. And if you're a mother, a father, a friend, know this. You have more power than you think. Keep fighting. Keep showing up. Keep making noise. This isn't just a story. This is a call to action. Subscribe now to see more powerful stories that speak truth, expose injustice, and uplift voices that need to be heard, because together we're louder.